It's Book and Skull reporting live from Angel Grove City Center.
And we're giving a shout out to Blerdography.
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 You gotta say it faster.
Blerdography. 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 Blerdography.
Gesundheit.
Thank you.
It's the hottest. We geeking out loud. Yeah, I'm a geek. We geeking out loud. I'm geeking out loud while you sneak around. See, I'm the one they speaking about. This key blast to throw you in the air and spin.
What's going on, everybody? It's me, Mark. Welcome back to another episode of Blerdkast, and today I am joined by hopefully a future legend in her industry. I would like to welcome to the show Miss Emi Verner. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
No worries. Just full disclosure before we begin. You reached out to me a while ago. Again, I do apologize. It's taken so long to finally be able to have you on the show, but you reached out to me a while ago, I believe after BLERDKon, and you invited me to do press for your convention, and I am honored. I am so flattered that I can do that. However, because of timing, I'm not able to do it, but I would like to have you on the show to talk about your convention so we can help promote your convention, and hopefully this time next year, I'll be on my way there. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and your convention, and where people can find you on the internet.
So my name is Emi. Very nice to meet you, Mark, and hopefully one day we do get to meet in person. I am the president of a new nonprofit. I also am a night owl, so I'm a little bit of a gremlin as well. But mostly I just like, doing new things. And one of those things was getting into the convention world, which has been the most interesting part of my 2025. I really can't wait to go into it.
Well, let's just go ahead and get into it. So you are the lead director of VillainSCon in, was it Rock Hill, South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken?
That's right.
So tell us, what is VillainSCon and how did you become the lead director?
So VillainSCon started because I went to a marketing networking, seminar here in town, and I met a gentleman named Frank. And he was like, I've been to Heroes Con in Charlotte. For those that are familiar, Heroes Con is one of the largest comic conventions on the East Coast. It's a trade show. And he was like, I've always wanted to see something opposite to that in Rock Hill. And I was like, opposite? I was like, so you mean villains? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, VillainSCon, that sounds pretty cool. And so he was like, he really wanted to see it. I was like, I think I could get a small team together to work on it. Halfway through, he wasn't able to because of obligations on his side. And so I was like, well, you know what? I think I could probably just take it from here, which ironically enough also happened with the nonprofit that I'm over. VillainSCon, from the beginning, I've just been doing it, and this is our second year, and just seeing the growth from year to year is kind of amazing. So it is a all ages pop culture event. I've always been into pop culture, and it is celebrating, the bad guys, the ones that, I think in today's age, people are starting to be more open to agreeing with the villain than they were before. And I've always liked, that concept because I've been villainized in my life, just having all of that nuance in this type of show, I think is something that is going to be really exciting.
That is amazing. I am so happy, tickled pink even, that you are honoring villains, as I feel villains don't get the light that they deserve. Sometimes the world needs a good villain to get behind, to cause some calamity and chaos, and I'm just happy, like I said, I'm tickled pink that you're honoring villains. With that said, what can the attendees expect to see at this year's VillainSCon?
So we have over 30 vendors that have novelties, from comics to gaming to decor, to different scents, merch. So you can definitely expect that. You can also expect tons of gaming. We're going to have casual gaming from board games and card games to our gaming tournaments. We're also going to have a one-shot D&D campaign with one of our influencers that's coming. So you can expect, we're also going to have a live hip hop artist that's going to perform. That's Phase God, love him. And we also are going to have a 6-piece metal horror band called Horror Scene coming down from Pennsylvania. And they're going to be closing out on our show on Saturday night. Alongside that, we're just going to have a lot of fun. There's going to be photo opportunities. There's going to be chance to meet up with other creators. There's going to be chances of learning through different workshops that we'll be providing. So it's going to be a great time.
That sounds amazing. Before we continue, I just want to just reiterate for people who don't know, where and when is VillainSCon taking place? Where can they buy tickets? Where can they go to find more information about the con that we might not cover in this podcast?
So the website is www.villainsconrockkill.org. And you can use that site to purchase your tickets. And the show is going to take place Friday, October 31st from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then Saturday, November 1st from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Perfect. Now, I've seen some of the special guests that you have announced on your Facebook page. But would you like to share with the audience some of the special guests, the celebrities that might show up that they can expect to see?
Yeah, and I'm really excited because of the nature of what VillainSCon is. It's not just locked into one type of niche. So we're going to have Corey Wilder, who is an anime voice actor. He's known for doing voices in One Piece. He's known for doing voices in Black Butler, Wisteria Wanted Sword. And so they are young in the industry, but they've definitely been getting a lot of voice work as of late. So I'm really excited to have him coming. He's going to be coming from Dallas, Texas. We're also going to be having 2 of the voice actors from the Red Dead Redemption franchise. So that's Steve Palmer, who plays Bill Williamson, and also Joe Arminix, who plays Karen Jones. She's also done some voice work in Pokemon and some other work in a lot of primetime dramas with ABC and NBC. So really happy to have both of them coming, to provide that from the gaming sphere. And then we're also going to be having Sylvia Jeffries. And again, she's done more live action work. She was in the horror movie 31. She also was the stripper that defeated Michael Myers in Rob Zombie's Halloween. So I'm really happy to have her, and she's a local as well to South Carolina. So I think we have like a really good spread of guests that are going to be coming out, just showing like the different areas that you may see villainy in. Even Corey playing Esper in One Piece. It's new for him to play a distinctly villainous role. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing. I really wish I could be there. So I'm definitely gonna try to make the push to be there next year. My next question for you is this: why should villains be celebrated in such a manner of having a convention that honors them?
I think people would want to do it, and no one up to this point has like really dug in and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And we're doing it from the grassroots level. So everything is community driven. I've had support, come out in these last few weeks and say, hey, I want this to be a great show, want to help you make it a great show. And it's because you don't really see a lot of shows do that. I heard that there was a Heroes and Villains Con in Texas. And then, Universal tried to do a Villains Con with like the Minions franchise, but no one's ever really dug deep and said, okay, we are going to celebrate villains. They always want to have heroes in the conversation. I'm like, heroes get celebrated, no problem all the time.
Right.
And then the second thing is that I live in an area that could support a convention, but doesn't typically have shows like this often. And so I was like, wouldn't it be funny to just have a convention like that here in a city that is known for being one of the most pleasant cities in the United States? That's my type of humor.
That's funny, because I have written down here. I was going to ask you why choose Rock Hill, South Carolina for a con, especially a villains con, compared to say like Charlotte or Atlanta, Alexandria, Washington, larger areas within the South. Why choose Rock Hill, South Carolina?
It's just like you said, those are all larger areas within the South. When you think of conventions, you're either thinking of the Triangle, you're thinking of Charlotte, you're thinking of Atlanta. You're not thinking of like these fringe cities. And that's kind of what I would call Rock Hill. It's like a hub city, like where it's like, it's a city you pass through and you don't really think about it too much because you're on your way to a bigger city. So my thing is that there are honestly people here that have said to me Villains Con was their first con, like talking about 2024. There are people here that have never experienced a show like this, and it's because they're not going to the bigger cities. So I do think there's merit in having a show like this in an area like this because you're serving the people that they may take an hour to get out to their next largest city near them. This show is like 30 minutes away. So for them, it's going to be a easier show to come to, a more affordable show to come to. Feedback we received from year one was that people were able to, because we kept all of the prices low from vendors to attendees, they were able to go in and get like a haul of items for $40. You can't really do that at a lot of shows. A lot of shows, you're spending no less than $200, and that's maybe on one item. The thing is that there is validity in that. There's some people that, unfortunately, they're not going to be able to go out to these big conventions all the time, all year round. And that's where a show like Villains Con comes in. We're having our show the same day and time as DreamHack Atlanta. And while DreamHack Atlanta will get the attendees, guess what? Not everyone can afford to go to Atlanta, get the hotel, pay for their food, pay for their transpo, get tickets to the show, be at that show all 2 days, and then have to go back home. There's some people that just cannot do that. I know creators that are going to go because they're simply being invited as creators, but otherwise they probably wouldn't go. The thing is that smaller shows are needed just as much as the bigger shows.
No, I absolutely agree. As somebody who goes to a lot of the larger shows, sometimes it's $200 just to walk in the door to just stand there with a badge, and you still got to eat, you still got to get around, you're gonna want to go to the vendors hall, you want to go to Artist Alley. Being able to get a lot of stuff for $40 is huge because you can't do that at Dragon Con or MomoCon or AWA. Because like you said, you're gonna spend big money on just like one or two items, or in some cases, like again, I major a lot of the Atlanta cons. There are cons that are just corporate cons. And I don't really care for the structure of those conventions where you pay money to wait in line and just pay more money. And yeah, they have some guests there, but in order to interact with that guest, you got to come out the pocket. and that's all you get. Now, not to say that's how all conventions in Atlanta are. Again, you have Ranger Stop and Pop, you have Dragon Con, you have MomoCon that have their reasons why you go to those conventions that make it worth it. But I agree with you. These smaller conventions, as I open up my purview and go out of state, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, there are a lot of cultural important conventions that are happening that a lot of people are not talking about. And I believe Villains Con definitely deserves to be in that in the purview of people and their talking points. Since you brought up year one of BlerdCon, I mean not BlerdCon, of Villains Con, I do want to talk about year one. What was year one like? What was that experience like? Obviously, you were successful enough to do a year two, which is big for any convention that's starting. The first 5 years is scary for a new convention. Trust me, I've seen it. But what was year one like for you?
So year one, I'm just going to be very upfront and honest because everyone has a different opinion on what success means. Sometimes
That is very
success,
true.
sometimes it's about how many people are in the door. Sometimes it's about how much money you made. Anyone doing events will tell you an event is not going to make money in the first 3 to 5 years. Like it's
True.
not. We were in the red year one, not deeply in the red, but we were still in the red. What made me come back for year two was the positive feedback, was the community saying, hey, you may not have had all of these other amenities that like the bigger cons had, but we felt special, we felt seen. We had a good time. And I saw people having a good time going to the vendor. We didn't have a lot of vendors for year one. We had like 10 vendors. We had like our gaming portion, which was in the Lowenstein building, but there wasn't a lot of signage. So some people just missed out on that. So there were things that for year one, I looked at and I was like, we could do better next time around. And we have been, even working closely with the venue. These things are just so important, even though they may seem small, even talking and having that kind of rapport with the vendors coming in, the influencers coming in. To me, that has been really important because I can't honestly say I'm doing an event for the community and not reaching out to that same community and making sure I get their feedback. So that's been kind of my big push for year two. I don't know how it will be to where it's like I can say there's going to be multiple years of VillainSCon. It may be this could be the last year, or it could be that this goes on and it becomes, a banner show that people like make time for and they put pencil into their events that they attend during the year. I don't know what that's going to look like, but what I can say is that the team that has been working behind VillainSCon has been putting in their absolute best. We spend hours and hours weekly making sure that we are doing what we can to make this show a successful show. So I will definitely say that we're proud of that.
That's amazing. What has been the biggest lesson from year one that you're taking in stride and attacking in year two?
Definitely marketing. That has been the biggest thing because the thing about it is that there were people who found out after the show. They were like, oh my God, there's a Villains Con that exists. I don't even live that far away from it. And they just didn't know about it. So they didn't come. So involving the community more, making sure that, there are flyers in different places in town and, making sure that I'm doing more talking engagements about it. I think for year one, I wanted to work in anonymity, and that ended up hurting potentially people that would have come out because I wanted to kind of stay anonymous and I can't stay anonymous. Like that's just not something that you can do if you're doing things like this. So
Mm.
I've been more out in front and forthcoming about what we're doing, like any updates I'm getting. Like someone reached out and was like, hey, a vendor you have is a known sandbagger in the cosplay community. And I learned a new word because I didn't know what that meant. And so now it's just taking the time to really, you know, learn more about certain things that were not in my purview before and making sure it's a good experience for people generally.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I know VillainSCon is coming up in a couple of weeks, but I would be remiss if I don't ask you, have you thought about VillainSCon's 5-year plan? Where do you want to see the convention go in the next 5 to say 10 years?
So I know I actually pitched this event 2 years ago at a conference called the Esports Travel Summit. And there were about 5 different smaller cities and municipalities that wanted this event. Like they
Mm,
wanted this event in Bryan, Texas. They wanted this event in Tulsa. They wanted this event in Cobb County, Georgia. Like there were, Beaufort, South Carolina was willing to throw money at making this event happen. But I wanted to make a point to say if it can happen here in Rock Hill, then I could make it happen in other places. What I've been running into is that, well, there are certain people that want it in Rock Hill, but not the people in power. So this is somewhat been considered a political event.
mm,
And
mm,
I've been navigating that. That's been definitely one of my big, takeaways for sure.
mm, 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 mm. I'm gonna just pick that fruit you just gave me. We are living in a political climate right now, being in America, especially here in the South. You being a black woman in this business, this industry of con promoting, which is essentially just promoting event promotion, if you want to consider it that. There are not a lot of black women who are out promoting and running cons. I'm gonna give you an example of two who just kind of retired from the game. Karen Ashley and Nakia Reese. I'm not sure if you know who they are, but they are the yellow and also yellow Power Rangers from the Power Rangers series. They ran Ranger Stop and Pop Atlanta, and just this past year, they changed new ownership and sold the company or sold the brand to someone else who's local to Atlanta who has a few conventions. But they for the longest time were the only black women I knew who were con runners because it's usually a white male dominated industry, and you being a black woman and especially within the nerdum space, how have you been able to navigate running your organization as a nonprofit and getting business as a black woman? Because I know, just because I've seen it from other people, even with like Karen Ashley and Nakia Reese, like they get shut down once people understand that, oh, this convention, this event or organization is run by black women. And there's been a lot of negative criticism around black women in the current political climate. I disagree with a bunch of it, or with all of it, let's just say that. But I know these have been challenging times for you. The fact that you are pioneering in mostly male dominated space and still being successful and making a business profitable is outstanding. So I'm just super enamored and want to go down that rabbit hole with you.
So I'm not unused to male dominated fields. I worked in logistics for a very large steamship line for 3 years. I'm a gamer. I feel like that's enough said.
No, I
Um
get it. I get it. I definitely get it.
and then, and then even, us beginning the nonprofit this year and, being uh ahead of a women's gaming nonprofit. There are not even that many nonprofits in the US. And so I definitely am not unused to being in male dominated fields, or even around men, like it doesn't, at this point, I don't even really blink at it. You have those that are like really into it And then you have those that are just like, no, what are you doing here? I'll tell you something that happened last week. And mind you, like, this is kind of a thing that I joined this year. So there is this entrepreneurial program here in Rock Hill, and it's called Fuel. And it's to help young entrepreneurs by setting them up with mentors that have been in very specific given fields and giving them insight, giving them feedback, like telling them like, hey, this is what you should do, or hey, you shouldn't do that. So I've had two mentors. One of them is my renegade, that's Steve. And Steve is just the type of person that's like, if he doesn't know something, he'll figure it out. And he always is like, okay, well, we could do this and we can do that. And I think you should put the price up. And I think so he's that type of person. Then I have Ray, and he's my paragon. And like whatever Steve does to lift me up, Ray brings me down to earth and like is like, okay, but did you consider the licensing, and do you have insurance, and do you so like he's that type of person for me. So I sometimes have an issue with public speaking. It's not that I can't public speak because I've done it before. It's that I'm shy, you know, like we could talk all day and I could talk to you one-on-one, but if I have to get on a stage and in front of people, I just get shy. So they set me up with a mentor to talk on stage about this event, and I did that at the beginning of the month, you know, seeking resources, seeking assistance, seeking feedback. And one of the people that I had reached out to like before this event even happened in 2024, because I was reaching out to different people in town to see if they would be willing to hear me out about this type of event or sponsor or, you know, get involved in some way. He comes up to me and he's like, oh, well, you know, I believe I've heard about this event before. And I was kind of like skeptical. So I was like, are you Joe? And he was like, no, my name's Jim. And that gave me like the confirmation I needed to know who he was. I was like, oh, Pallone. And he looked kind of shocked. He was like, oh, she knows my government name. And mind you, his name is on the door of his office because he's a CPA. So he's a CPA with Edward Jones. So he's like, depends, you know, on who's asking. And I'm like, oh, so you're Jim Pallone. And he was like, yeah. And, you know, I remember seeing this email from you about the event. And all I could think was, is she for real? And he said that to my face. And I was like, yeah, I'm for real. Like, I'm a metal horror band going to come to this event for real. Like, what? And the guy next to him, Salvatore, he was like, wait, you have a metal rock band coming for VillainSCon? He's like, I may have to come just to see that. And he kind of was like, oh, well, you know, if the city sees that this is getting big, they're going to have to get involved. And he kind of faded into the background. And I thought about that because his office is directly next to the esports lab. And I was like, wow, he really doesn't want to see this event grow because that's more traffic near his office. That he wouldn't want. And I was like, what an arrogant guy. And I asked him, I was like, so what do you like to do, Jim? What do you like? And he was like, and I'm just like, oh, so you're just boring too. You're boring, passionless, arrogant guy that looked down upon me and was like, how dare she do this type of event? This doesn't even make sense. And I posted about it online because I'm not one to mince words. And someone reached out to me. They were like, you know, I saw what they said to you, and that just made me want to help you. And so they were like, you know what, I'll be a roaming performer at your show. I'll do, you know, different things to engage the crowd. I just don't want this guy to win. He's like, I don't even know the whole context, but I don't want this guy to win and think that he can just say things like that to someone who is trying to provide something for the community. And that really meant a lot to me. You know, shout out to DJ. And I've been getting that type of feedback lately. So it's been really nice. I've shed a lot of tears about this show. I've had a lot of highs and probably way more lows than I would care to admit. But I'm fully in it because I really do feel like there is something here, right? And we're still finding our identity, we're still defining ourselves, but I do think that there's something here. And even speaking to the board of directors with whom I work with, and I have very high esteem, when I asked if they would allow this show to be under the banner of our nonprofit, they voted yes. And it didn't fall upon me like where I thought, oh, that doesn't mean anything. Like that meant so much to me because they easily could have said, no, it has nothing to do with our main brand. But you know, the way I explained it, I was like, there's so many women that are in our organization that are working on this event. So, you know, why shouldn't it be considered? Even if it's not all the way everything that we do. And people had been asking me for years, like, oh, when is Athena Alliance going to have a convention? When are we going to have a goddess con? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe the next president can answer to that. I was like, I don't know if I could do that. But then, you know, doing VillainSCon and it just started to make sense.
So much to go off there. I was gonna ask you, are you a villain at heart? But after hearing your story, one, I don't personally think black women can be villains, given the history of black women in this culture, in our society, and how black women are constantly the pillars, the people who are the strongest amongst all of us. Who
black women, of course, can be villains. We've had some of the most iconic black women villains. Like when you think of Eartha Kitt, right?
Yeah.
How, when you think of, you know, like there's been so many iconic black villains, and why should we not be able to take up space in all of the spaces? Why do we need to be categorized as the tragic hero that is put upon by our white counterparts? There's no joy in that either. So why can't we take up the space and be villains? I watch reality TV, and there's a show that I watch, Big Brother. I've watched it for many years since I was a kid. And the conversation came up this year of one of the people on the show. Her name was Mickey, oddly enough, but she's a black woman. And she went from being a hero near the start of the season to being basically a heel by the end of the season, to the point where people were calling her a villain. And the conversation that came up, because there was discourse around this, it's like, why can't we have black women be portrayed as villains? Why are we afraid of that? Why is that a negative thing? Why can't we have the delusional, self-confident black woman? And she may not be right all the time, she may not, you know, even succeed all the time, but why can't we have that?
I do understand where you're coming from. Black women should be able to, and I hate to say this, break the glass ceiling in every genre and every aspect, because black women are just simply, forgive my French, the shit, and need to be recognized as such. But coming from my perspective as a black man, especially given the current political climate, you have your Charlie Kirks out there who demonize black women, President 47s who demonize black women in such a hateful and disdainful way. It in my personal being, I don't like seeing black women portrayed in such a way, especially from a white counterpart. That just such unbecoming of them and so demeaning of how black women are treated, especially today in the year of our Lord 2025. But you are right. Black women have the right to be whoever they want to be, and I do support that. There are great black women villains out there. CCH Pounder portraying the role of Amanda Waller is one of them. She's probably one of my favorite villains out there, and so much more. But again, for me as a black man, in the political climate that we currently sit in, black women are nothing but heroes to me. You black women throughout our history have, like I said, struggled so much and have been the reason why the black community has been held together through the decades of all of our oppression and struggle and strife that we've gone through in this country. So that's why I say, me personally, I don't like seeing black women as villains. But hearing your perspective, yes, you're right. You have every right to be portrayed however you want to believe. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and ask the question: do you see yourself as a villain at heart?
I have been villainized my whole life. And that's just a fact. I've been villainized my whole life. I am absolutely the villain in someone's story. I know you've probably seen my little buddy here, my little Heartless. My mom called me a Heartless, like early on in life, and not as like a cute, fun little name, like actually called me a heartless individual. So I've just honestly embraced that. I embrace that because the thing is that when you look at the history, Heartless are victims in the story. Like they are the villains, right? You're supposed to
Right.
defeat them, but they're also the victims in the story as well. So I think that everyone in some way, shape, or form is a hero of their own story. But guess what? That means you're a villain in someone else's. You can't have one exist without the other. And that's okay to have both things exist. That's why there's a duality in it. You can't have everyone be heroes because then no one is a hero, right? That's what makes
Right.
the world of My Hero Academia so interesting. Everyone has a quirk. So everyone is a hero, right? Except no, there's a subsect that are villains, and they're villains because even in a society where everyone has powers, they are still seen as othered.
Mm.
So, and that's usually what ends up happening in a lot of those stories. The villain is the other, right? Sometimes they do good, there's nuances to that, but otherwise they're seen as the other because they're acting outside of the status quo. So for me, if you're saying, do I see myself as a villain? Well, I can't see myself as a hero without being a villain for someone else.
Mm. Very interesting. With that said, do you think right now, and I hate to go back to the political side of things, but do you think right now we, as Americans, as the world, need a hero to unite behind, or do you feel like it's time for a proper villain to come and take the place to lead the world, to break the world, and then lead the world into a better place from where we currently are?
That's so complex because of where we are as a society and where you stand. Because for some people they feel like this is the heroic era. I don't.
I don't either.
Um,
I feel
you
like we
know,
are repeating history.
yeah, it feels like a very weird repeating history of like neo traditionalism of a bunch of trad wives and a lot of misogyny taking place. So for me, it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, we need this right now, because to me it's like there there is the villainous component in the office for me. For
No,
me,
I agree.
there's some people that are like, ah, it's fine, like we're good. And there's some people that want to bury their heads in the sand. Now I'm not burying my head in the sand. My whole thing is that I can only focus on what's in front of me. What's in
Right.
front of me is my community. What's in front of me is the people that I care about. What's in front of me is, the things that I hold near and dear to my heart. And I can only do things to help and nurture and cultivate those things. For some people, that's not enough. And that's totally understandable. For other people, that's all they got. So that's what it is, and that's what they're going to do. For me personally, I don't think this is a thing where it's one person that can just fix everything, or one policy in place that will make everything better. It's more than that. It has to be a collective effort. And the problem that we're facing is that for some of us, we're in an echo chamber where, we are hearing one side of things and we're like, oh, well, we agree with that, but that's not necessarily what everyone is feeling. Like when Kendrick said, I'm what the culture is feeling, that's real.
Yeah.
Like, that's real. On the flip, though, right? How do you define culture? Because there were a lot of people that didn't like his Super Bowl halftime performance, and yet it was one of the most viewed of all time. And so he was absolutely right. He is what the culture is feeling. It may not be a good feeling, but he absolutely is what the culture is feeling. So in this instance, do I think it could be a hero or a villain? I don't think either one, right? Because again, if you're thinking of it in one way, someone is a hero in someone's story and a villain in yours. So you could have someone that you feel good about, that you're like, this is a hero right here. They may not be a hero for someone else. They may be the villain for someone else. And this is why, when the 47th election happened, and I had a feeling, I was like, this is giving 2016. I was like, this is giving 2016 to me. I just had a feeling. And it's not that I wanted to have this feeling. Of course not. But I couldn't shake it.
Right.
When the results happened, and, the conversation of whether they were, falsified or anything, that's a whole other conversation I don't really want to delve into. But like, for some people, they felt good about what happened. And that's it. Like, they felt good, and life just had to continue. Life couldn't just end because of the results that happened. Even around me, I live in South Carolina. So I know how red it is here. I'm still friends with Blue Dot. Through my efforts in gaming and everything, I ended up meeting the former president of the DNC, and we are really good friends now. But that doesn't mean that the viewpoints of one party is going to supersede the other party, especially in a place that has had these sort of policies since forever. So having a VillainSCon here in South Carolina, having the colors be red and black and white, all of those things were purposeful on my end. All of those things meant something on my end. It wasn't just, ooh, what are some cool colors? And I've had people say to me, well, I've been on your website and it looks scary. I'm like,
that's the point.
Good. It should. See, shouldn't a sea of red look scary?
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it so much.
And I've had people talk to me about it. I've had people say, you know what? You ate with that. And I've had people say, oh my God, I was so scared. I don't know if I can invite my kids to this, or can I take my kids to this? And I'm like, well, you saw our FAQs. It said it's an all ages event. You can bring your kids. I have pictures of kids on the website. If you don't want to bring your kids because you think it's scary, well,
It goes without saying. It goes without saying. Oh my god, I love it. I didn't even think about that. Well, I mean, I did, but like the fact that like you planned that and it's working, that speaks volumes. That's you ate with that. You definitely ate with that. Oh my god. Before we end the show, I just have to ask, who are some of your favorite villains throughout whatever genre throughout history?
Like I said, I'm gonna pull out some and you're gonna be like, okay, that makes sense, and then you're gonna be like, wow, that's kind of wild. Okay, like if you're talking last 20 years, Lana Parrilla playing the evil queen from Once Upon a Time,
Mm,
literally one of my favorites. Love her. Terry Silver from Cobra Kai.
mm,
What a campy villain. Love him. The entirety of the Gotham cast. Like
mm.
Gotham as a property. They did that.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Um Hopper from like A Bug's Life, or even like Hades from like James Woods's Hades particularly. And I was talking about this actually just last night. A lot of people think that a good villain is just in the writing. And the writing is important, but what makes a really good villain too is the performance.
Yes, I
It's
agree.
eating the scene and like literally chewing the scenery. And there are some actors that just can't do that. They can't portray that. And it's like, it's unfortunate. But the ones that can and do, it's next level. It's next
Um,
level. There's joy in like seeing a hero and seeing them win, but having a really good villain for them to be up against is so important. I think that's what people talk about the Marvel MCU problems that are happening now, but people forgot like the early MCU issues were the fact that you had these good heroes and you had sucky villains. You didn't
true.
have anyone that really like gave you gravitas and gave you, something to really like think about. And then you get to like phase 4, and that's when you get your Killmonger, your Thanos, and that's when people are like, oh, this is what a good villain could be like stacked up against these heroes. But if you're thinking of like phase 1, phase 2, they weren't really I mean, Sam Rockwell in Iron Man 2, he wasn't bad. He just wasn't given enough time because they were also focused on the other villain in the movie, who he was forgettable. Is the guy that could do like the electric whips. Like he was forgettable. Who cares about Thor's villains up to Gore? No one cared. Like honestly, except the Grandmaster. But that's a different
Right.
conversation.
Agreed. Agreed.
Ant-Man, do you care about his villains?
Put a
Like,
pin in that.
be so for real. Be so for real. And no, but I'm being honest with you. Captain America arguably had in like the early phases the better villains, arguably, with like Red Skull and R.I.P. Robert Redford, but Winter Sol Captain America Winter Soldier, he was a pretty decent villain in that. But otherwise, like, who cares? And it should never be like that. Your villain should drive your hero to be better. And if they're not doing that, they're not a good villain. That's my whole thing.
Oh my god, you just preach so much. Just to piggyback off of some of what you said, when you said an actor chewing the scene and just like the duality of good and evil, the first thing that came to my mind was Michael Fassbender in X-Men Apocalypse with the metal coin in the forest and him just going after the German soldiers that murdered his family. Just he ate with that. Just hands down, he ate with that. I'm still waiting on a Magneto only origin story because Magneto is like probably one of my favorite villains of all time, just throughout the comics history. Killmonger was right. I don't care what you gotta say. Killmonger was right. Wakanda should have been helping black people around the world. I'm gonna leave it at that. You can make of that what you will. Thanos had a point. Never saying he was right, but he did have a point. Just poor execution. I do love Infinity War because, like, he won. He won. Endgame doesn't matter. He won in Infinity War, hands down. Love Infinity War because the villain won. And like seeing the heroes lose and how devastating that was, I ate it up. I was like, I want more of this.
But
And
here's the thing that I question. That here's the thing that I think about. Because did you watch Captain America and the Winter Soldier, or it was known as originally Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Yes, I did watch Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
So here's the thing about the loss. The loss was a grand loss of life, right? A reality in which half the humans on Earth are gone.
Right.
But what that show did was, to me, it justified it, because the ones that remained were able to have enough resources to help each other. People that would have never helped each other before were now helping each other because they were the ones that were behind. And to me, right, I wish the MCU stood on that. I wish they did. Like, you could say, oh yeah, well, they lost to Thanos. And we lost all of these people. We lost these heroes. We lost these other individuals in the greater multiverse, at least on this particular Earth. But what was left behind was a society where other people were helping, genuinely helping people. And they never took the time to like actually explore what that looked like, because it just wanted to be caught up in, oh, well, there was this grand loss of life, the end. But it wasn't the end. Like, life still continued on even after that point. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool to see, after the blip, you saw people coming back. But really, I wasn't interested in that. I would have been interested in seeing what that world that Thanos spoke about looked like, because it actually wasn't that bad from what they said. Like, they admitted and said it really wasn't that bad. The only thing that I would say is that when Sam was gone and then he came back and he was like, well, now that I'm back, you're going to be able to get all of the resources you need, da 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 da. And, his sister Sarah was like, no, we're not going to get all of the resources we need just because you came back. That's not how the world works now. And I really appreciated that conversation. I wish we got more of that conversation, because that's how it feels now in the real world. There wasn't a grand loss of life, but there was a grand loss or a shaken emotion of like what our society really is now at present. Right. And this is actually what we are living through. It's not that it was through some sort of cataclysmic event of a madman, or maybe it was, depending on your viewpoint. But my whole point is that when you're discussing like villains, most of these individuals are ones that are seeking progress. Heroes are the ones that stop it because they want things to remain exactly the same, supposedly.
Right.
So in my purview, you have an event that happens and it basically just gets reneged. And I didn't agree with that, because it's like, what about those 5 years that people lived through, where they had to deal and contend with not having certain people around anymore? What about the new life that was born during that time period?
Right.
Those are like the things and the questions that I feel like in a lot of media that portrays like heroes specifically, we're supposed to look at that and be like, it's a good thing that we are back to square one. I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. In some ways, yeah. But in other ways, it's like, so you undid what Thanos did. Did that end up making things better?
No, because we're still in the same problem we were in before he snapped his fingers.
Thank you.
And
Thank
they
you.
never address that. They never go back and address that. They just move on to phase 4, which sucks so much. But I want to pull this pin out of one thing before we go. You brought up Ant-Man and his villains, and you're right. No one cares about Ant-Man and his villains until Ant-Man Quantumanium 3, where the villain he defeated makes no sense. Kang the Conqueror. I know this is going to be controversy. I'm not getting into all that. I just want to focus on this. Ant-Man, of all Avenger characters, defeated Kang the Conqueror. I'm glad. I'm kind of at this point glad that we don't have to deal with Kang the Conqueror no more, and we just moved on to Doomsday. Because that
Did
makes
we
no sense to me.
move on? Because I've been hearing rumblings that
I've been hearing those same rumblings too, but I'm like, we went through phase 4 and then almost all of phase 5 without hearing anything from Kang the Conqueror because of the controversy. Disney
No, so
was
he was in this phase because of Loki season 2.
That's right. That's right. I did forget about that. But after Loki, because of the controversy, because of what Disney did, that was a wrap for him. And they kind of rewrote a lot of things to make Doomsday the big bad and kind of just left the multiverse saga a mess. Let's just leave it at that.
I think with Doomsday in particular, because it's Doctor Doom, it's not that they left the multiverses like saga alone, because he also has issues with the multiverse, where he like does things to the multiverse. So I think that was a fine, I guess, pivot. I'm pretty sure that's what it would be considered. It's a pivot. But my whole thing is regarding Kang the Conqueror is that they're in this situation now where the actor Jonathan Majors is getting cachet again, even with Namor, which the actor Tanakh, he was in his own scandal too, to where it was like, is he gonna come back? And he's slated to come back as well. So the thing about corporate Disney is that corporate Disney is evil. I'm sorry. You want to talk about villains? Right. They are some villains over there. They're hypocrites. Because they allow the geese to do it, but not the gander. And it's dumb. So they wanted to have this whole morality thing with Jonathan Majors because that was popular at the time. Now that it's more popular to see him come back, now they're kind of circling the idea of spinning that block again and being like, maybe we should bring him back. And Jonathan Majors, because he still wants to have a career, is also considering spinning that block again, even though if he had any self-respect, he wouldn't do it. But that's just me. That's just me.
To that, I'm gonna say people got rent due on the first. I don't know how Jonathan Major paid his bills, but rent's due on the first. I can't judge him.
All I'm saying is that they stood 10 toes down with the Namor actor, and they didn't do the same with him. And that's it's because the Namor actor isn't as popular here as Jonathan Majors was. So, like, let's, everybody's got rent due, but all I'm saying is they let him get away with it, and they didn't let him get away with it. And that's all I'm going to say. If you want to, be like, but, he's got rent. And we all got rent. I ain't taking money from everybody, though. You literally can't. You literally can't. So.
And like you said, the real villain of the day are these corporations. They're the real villains. So Disney, EA, Warner Brothers, y'all know who y'all are. You're the reason why we're here where we are. Before we go, where can everybody find you on the interwebs if they want to follow you?
Oh my gosh. I'm everywhere and nowhere at the same time. If you're gaming, I am Demon Angel Clone. You may find a fan fiction account with that name. Yeah. If you are, generally online, I am also just Demon Angel Clone, or known as the Goddess of Opportunity. I didn't give myself that name. My team gave it to me. So, be kind. But I'll probably be there. I do a lot of things, with our gaming organization, Athena CLT Plus Incorporated. And we're on Discord, so you can find us there. You can find me now currently doing a lot of VillainSCon stuff. Hopefully I will take a break after the convention in 2 weeks. But up until then, if you catch me anywhere like LinkedIn or whatever, I'm Emi. And I'm always happy to like meet and conversate with people. So don't feel afraid to send me a connection request, or, like a friend request or a follow. And then, we can talk and chop it up a bit. But yeah, I feel like I'm very behind the scenes still in a lot of ways. Even though I do a lot of front facing things now, I feel like I'm still very behind the scenes. So if you don't, see me yapping it up somewhere, I'm probably just quietly doing my
Awesome, awesome. And one last time, where can people get their tickets for this year's Villains Con that's happening Halloween weekend?
VillainSCon. You can get your tickets at www.villainsconrockkill.org. Villain is spelt with the A after the L. A lot of people want to put the I there. The I is not there. It's an A after the L. But yes, it's villainsconrockkill.org. And tickets are, I would say, fairly priced for what what you should expect and what you're planning to get. So, we'd love to see you out. If you choose to go to another show during that same time, that's okay. Hope we'll catch you at the next one. But I would really love to see people come out. We've done a lot of good work, I believe, with growing the show, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. And who doesn't want to celebrate villains? Like, how many times are you going to be like, I went to a villains con? Probably not a lot. So you should
True.
come and see us.
True. Everybody out there, I definitely encourage you. If you are in the South, if you're in the North, the East, the West, go to Villains Con Halloween weekend. It's going to be the new spot to be. Thank you so much for coming on. I cannot wait to see the success of this year's Villains Con. I will definitely be here in Atlanta, on social media, trying to soak up as much of your convention as I can, and making my plans for next year. But thank you so much for coming on. For everybody else, this has been Blerdcast. You can find Blerdcast on the internet, on YouTube. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe. You can also become a channel member to help support the channel so we can make it to Villains Con next year for as low as $2 a month. You become a channel member, become a member of the Blerd Nation, and get exclusive access to early episodes such as this and so many other things like members only content and other future planned things to come. Not going to spoil that for right now because I got a lot of things coming up. But this has been Blerdcast, and I will get y'all on the next one. Peace.